All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, folks, for joining us this afternoon. My name is LaRuby May, and I'm a partner at May Jung Law Firm, headquartered here in Washington D.C. with an additional our other offices on the West Coast in Southern California. We are a social justice law firm, really focusing, and we do plaintiffs civil work, really focusing a lot on personal injury and discrimination. And again, Jae is my law partner, and one of the things that we talked about and decided when we were starting the firm is we unapologetically wanted to represent communities, specifically Black and Brown communities, where folks have faced injustices and folks have been treated unfairly, because of who they are, because of their either race or because of their gender or because of their economics. And so we are super proud and very thankful to be able to do the work, constitutional law violation cases. We represent brothers and sisters across this country who have been killed or lost their lives at the hands of police, folks who have been wrongly convicted, exoneration cases. And again, we also do some of the typical personal injury cases, motor vehicles, workers' comp, premise liability cases. And so we're really grateful and thankful for the opportunity and the work that we do. We have an amazing team of dedicated lawyers and staff that are committed to fighting on behalf of the disenfranchised and the underrepresented population. So wanted to just get on this afternoon and talk. So I see a question that's asking, and this is my live, your chance to ask me any question that you want to ask. And so I have a question in that says, what sets May Jung apart from other law firms? So one of the other things that we do that I didn't mention is we're also in the mass tort field around doing law. And in the work that we do, again, the law profession is still a very white male dominated profession. And when we start looking at Black and Brown lawyers in the profession, we see a lot of defense attorneys. We see a lot of family lawyers, right? We don't necessarily see as many in corporate or in personal injury. And so my law partner is Korean, I'm African American. I think, one of the things that sets us apart is we're a woman of color owned law firm. But I think fundamentally, beyond kind of the perspective that we bring as women of color, what makes us different is our approach to understanding that there are some historic issues that plague our community that create the biases for what happens, right? We know what it is for Black men and women to be arrested or to be harassed by the police, or quite frankly, to lose their lives because of their color. Our tagline for our law firm is justice. Justice for our people is personal. And I think that sets us apart because it is personal, because when it's a Black or a brown person, that's personal to us. That's our brother, that's our sister, that's our niece, nephew, right? Those are folks that we understand a personal connection and a relationship to. And I think, when we're in rooms across from defense counsels, or even sometimes we're in rooms with other plaintiffs lawyer that don't look like us, we think that they're what we bring to that table and the sensitivity to our clients is something that's not happening on a consistent basis. And so that is, some of the things I believe that sets us apart from other law firms, or more specifically other plaintiff civil rights law firms, and very specifically in the mass tort world. I had the privilege of doing a CLE class in partnership with a couple of law firms, and also with Southern University Law Center. And we were talking to them about the mass tort world and how it's a dominated world by white middle-aged men, and was able to share with them, in this mass tort world, the first Black woman to lead a mass tort litigation as a co-lead was Fu, and that happened in 2023. And so the being able to break the ceilings and to be able to have attorneys that look like a large population of folks who've been harmed in our community, absolutely sets us apart. So thank you very much for that question. Okay. Um, Thank you. Alicia, I think maybe that's your name, asked me what's the most memorable case the firm has handled. I think it would be unfair for me to say what's the most memorable case that the firm has handled. I think it's probably going to be a little bit more personalized per attorney, for for the individual cases. But I'll tell you, there are a couple of cases for me that are extremely memorable, and I think significant, uh, not only for me personally, but for what the work that we do. Um, One of the things that we've continued to have as a foundation for our firm is that we want to fight for our clients both inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. And we had the privilege of representing the family of a young sister, Stormaya Denson Jackson, who was just an amazing 12-year-old young lady who lived here in Washington, D.C. And Stormaya, unfortunately, took her own life. And we filed a litigation against the school that she was at when she took her own life. And that case for me really helped to define that I wanted to be a plaintiff civil rights lawyer, because the fights for our people is just, most people think about justice for black and brown people as the vehicle is only through the criminal justice system. And we're making sure that folks are not getting, over penalized or just, looking at justice reform from the criminal system. But to be able to look at the civil system and how it is that it's mistreated and handled black and brown folks, especially in the Stormaya case, was pretty tremendous and significant. And one of the things that we were able to do as a result of the Stormaya's case is, at the time in the District of Columbia, children who were died a wrongful death at the hands of someone, or who were injured, had a catastrophic injury, when they were thinking about the value of that child's life, you could reduce the value. You could say that the life was worth less simply because the child was an African American and female. And through the litigation, we were able to also fight in the halls of the legislature here in the District of Columbia and get the law changed to say that it doesn't matter if a child is killed, if a child is harmed catastrophically, and there's a determination of what that value should be, that then that value shouldn't be, $10 million for a white male child, and then, 8 or $7 million for a female black child for no reason other than that child is female and black. And so, for those who want to check it out, that is the Stormaya Denson Jackson Economic Damages Act here in the District of Columbia, which is now the law that changes that. And I think that is memorable for me. I think it's also that law, changing that law, changes the reality for any black and brown child in the future who will unfortunately lose their life or have a catastrophic injury here in the district. So I think that would be for me personally. And if I had to say, if I had to take a vote of our team and say what's the most memorable case, I would say that we currently represent 6 amazing African American women in what we refer to as the Stanton View case, for a group of women located on Talbot Street in DC. Again, go to our website or Google Talbot Street or Stanton View here in Washington, DC. And this case has been significant in holding the district and subcontractors accountable for the harm that they've done to these women. And we're fighting hard for this case, and the district is fighting so hard against us that they're changing laws to try to move their position to win. And I think that everyone on my team touches the Stanton View case, and so that case is going to be the most memorable. I think probably that would get the vote from our team for that case, and we're still in litigation for that case, and we continue to fight on behalf of the 6 women we're allowed to the opportunity to represent in that case. Did I see another question? Um, so there's a question. Good question. What should I do if I get hurt at work or get into a car accident? Thanks for that question. Um, Hey, listen, if you get hurt at work, let's start there. If you get hurt at work, especially here in the District of Columbia, I don't know where the person is asking the question is from, but I'll just take it from the perspective of the District of Columbia. That's a workers' compensation case. Here in the District of Columbia, if you get hurt at work, right? And if you were at work and you get hurt, then that meets the kind of basic criteria for you to be eligible for a workers' compensation claim. In the District of Columbia, you have 30 days to make sure that your employer knows that you were hurt or injured at work. Sometimes that's super easy, right? Because you got hurt at work and maybe you had to call the ambulance, and people at work saw it. Maybe sometimes, we hurt ourselves, we pulled our back or we did something at work and we didn't notify anyone. We went home, we thought it was going to get better and it didn't get better. Definitely within 30 days, you need to make sure that your employer knows that you were injured, at work. You need to, try to get an incident report for that, seek the medical attention that you need. Because if you don't notify your employer within 30 days of your injury, then you lose the right to be able to go after the claim. Once you've given your employer notification within those 30 days, then you have 1 year to actually file your workers' compensation claim. And there's a process for that. I encourage you to, again, check out our website or give us a call if you've been injured at work for us to begin to initiate that process for you, to file the necessary forms with the Office of Workers' Compensation. And, one of the things that people don't really appreciate sometimes about workers' comp is what workers' comp is meant to do is to provide you your medical expenses, and then it provides you 2/3 of what your average weekly income was while you were working. So, if you get hurt at work, make sure somebody knows, right? Make sure a supervisor knows, make sure a manager knows, like someone knows, and you get evidence that they know within 30 days. And then, call our office, check out our website, fill out a form, and allow us the opportunity to represent you. And the other part was, what do you do if you get hurt in a car accident? Again, seek treatment. Sometimes we get in car accident. If it's catastrophic car accidents, many times there's an ambulance and you go to the hospital from the scene of the accident. Sometimes you don't go to the hospital directly from the scene of the accident. Sometimes people get in car accidents and they don't feel the impact of it immediately. But you need to go and you need to seek treatment, right? To kind of find out medically what the damages are as it relates to your body, your physical body. The other part of it is, mental health issues. It also can happen as it relates to car accidents. Definitely, we're in car accidents, we bump our heads. That, also looking for neurological issues. But once you get in a car accident, make sure you file a report. In the District of Columbia, again, the police don't come out unless someone is being transported by the ambulance, but don't let that distract you from calling the police and at least getting a police report number so that you have evidence that the report happened. If the police don't come on the scene, I was just talking to someone the other day, and what they did is they got a copy, they took a picture of the person that hit them's driver's license. And they didn't get a picture of the tag. They didn't ask them for a copy of their insurance. And, now it's a chase to try to find this person who the address on the ID wasn't the address where they live at anymore. They didn't get a phone number. So if the police doesn't come and take a police report, take a picture of the car, take a picture of the accident, take a picture of the person who hit you, their tag, go up into the window, get the VIN number, ask them for a copy of their insurance, and then again, you give our office a call and give us the opportunity to represent you. What kind of damages can I get for a car accident? So we're a personal injury firm, so we really only handle with the damage or the harm done to your body. But You can there's two type of damages, right? You can get the damages for your personal property, for your personal injury, and for your property damages. That's for your vehicle. Generally, that's going to be a claim that you file with your insurance provider, who's going to then do an evaluation of your vehicle, or either by your provider or the insurance provider of the tortfeasor or the person who hit you. Then there's going to be the personal injury damages, which is the part that we happen, the part that we provide as a part of the services at our law firm. And that is, again, if you broke your arm, if you got a concussion, if you bruised your back or whatever. And so then we're able to, again, go and figure out not only what it costs for the treatment for that, but if there's any long-term disability issues that you're going to have as a result of that, that becomes a part of what we advocate and what we fight for in terms of the damages. Being able to kind of look, a lot of people want like, well, pain and suffering. And so it really becomes a combination of what we say are your actual damages, and your non-economic damages that we're able to go after for you, as a result of a car accident. This is the one thing that I want to point out. I think this is for anyone who's watching across the country, but very specifically for those of you who are watching in the District of Columbia. Look at your own insurance policy and make sure that you have and UIM and or UIM. And what that stands for is uninsured motorist policy or underinsured motorist policy. And what that means is, again, for those of us who are in the district, we know that, for example, our brothers and sisters who get their tags for their cars in Virginia up until recently didn't really have to have insurance, right? And sometimes we have people that are driving on the streets that are not insured, or their insurance has lapsed. They don't have good insurance. So they get in a car accident with you, they hit you, and you got $50,000 worth of medical bills. You haven't been able to go to work for a month, so you have lost wages. And the person who hit you has no insurance, and they have no insurance. And so now you're like, what now? That there's no damages. There's no way for me to get compensated. So the way for you to be able to have some money to help compensate you for those medical bills, to be able to help compensate you for any wages that you lost because you didn't go to work, is by having uninsured motorists as a part of your own policy. Call your insurance broker. If you don't have insurance and you need it, shoot me a call, shoot me an email. We can recommend you. Branch Benefit Services is an amazing insurance company that we've been able to work with. But you need to make sure that says like, hey, in case I get hit and the person who hits me doesn't have insurance, I need to make sure that my family can eat, or that I can replace any money that I lost from not being able to work, because I have uninsured motorist coverage on my policy. And the underinsured is saying somebody hit me, they have $25,000 worth of insurance, but I have $100,000 worth of bills and lost wages. So for my underinsured policy, I'm going to carry, if you carry $100,000 right on your policy, then you'd get the 25 from the person who hit you, and then you can go at looking at the 100,000 that you have on your policy. And I think it just becomes very important. I mean, we see time after time here in the district and folks that we represent where the person that hit him doesn't have insurance, or the person that hit him has only $20,000 or $25,000 worth of insurance. And, in most case scenarios, $25,000 isn't going to be enough to compensate you for your loss. What advice would I give to someone who's hesitant to pursue a legal action? I was talking to a sister today, whose child was injured. She wasn't severely injured, but she was injured at school. And, we entrust the care of our children to educators and to the school system. And we want to be able to send our children to school knowing that they're going to be safe and they're going to be sent home. And it was like, well, the child wasn't harmed. Like there was no broken arms, or there was no significant physical damages. But, my encouragement to that parent was like, if you don't hold the school environment accountable, the next time your child could get hurt more significantly, or the next time another child that's in that same situation could be heard. And so it becomes important for us to hold people accountable for when they break the law or when they're negligent or when they've had a disregard for you. And so I think that it becomes important for us to look at it. I mean, I don't think my dad wasn't a really big person on like suing people, right? I think sometimes folks have that reservation, but I think that uh, the hesitancy should be if like don't no false claims or like don't be making up stuff or anything like that. But if you've been harmed, if you've been mistreated, if you've been discriminated against, right? For me, I think you have an obligation not only to stand up for yourself, but to stand up so that other folks that may come behind you don't get that same mistreatment, that you hold people accountable so that they think twice or three times or whatever before they perform that same actions against people in the future. And again, we give free consults here at the firm. So if you're hesitant and want to have a conversation about what does it mean, it takes a long time, right? And so um, you know, give us a call and let us have a conversation with you and talk to you about what the legal process is. I mean, the unfortunate reality is in many cases, court systems are backed up, and so legal processes are more of what I call a marathon and not a sprint. So you got to be ready to take it to the take it to the long end. But we're ready. We're here. We're willing, and we're ready to kind of talk you through what your rights are and what it means to hold folks accountable. So yeah, what's the next question? Are you able to take an injury case at Walmart in Florida? So our law firm, we are a national firm, so we're able to take cases across the country, right? So we can take cases in Florida, we can take cases in California, Colorado, Maryland, Texas. So there's a lot of jurisdictions that we can take the cases, and so it just really depends on what the case is and what the injuries are. On our evaluation or investigation on where it is that we take a case. But again, we have cases in New York, and we have cases all over because, unfortunately, injustice doesn't happen, in just certain areas. It's happening all across the country. And so we fight for our folks all across the country. But feel free to give us a call, 866-924-3261 with that case that you have in Florida there at Walmart. We'd love to have a conversation with you about to see whether or not we can help you hold Walmart accountable for the injury that you suffered. Um, what type of mass tort cases are we currently working on? Again, thank you for that question. We're currently working on a couple of mass tort cases. I think the one, one of them that we're working on, I think many folks have heard about, and maybe you haven't. There has been a scientific data that shows a relationship between women of color, mostly Black women, predominantly Black women, who used to relax their hair. Or, some folks say I used to get my hair perm, hair relaxer, whatever the jargon is that you use. But there's a relationship between, relaxing your hair and getting uterine and ovarian cancer. And, I used to perm my hair back in the day, and I think that, like, even when it was burning my scalp and was having those issues, I think if I thought about it was going to cause some harm to me, I thought maybe, I mean, I don't know that I thought it, but like it would have probably made sense to me that it did some harm to my head, right? And to now know that the science has a relationship between the chemicals, we call it a toxic soup, like all these chemicals that they put into the hair relaxer formula. It essentially impacts our endocrine system as women and has a negative effect. And in fact, what we see, the science and the data shows us that there's a causal relationship between those chemicals and Black women getting uterine and ovarian cancer. It's incredible what some of these mass torch and what some of these manufacturers did and what they put in chemicals, what they knew about the chemicals that they put in, and they continue to do it, and they market it to our people, right? I mean, one of the things that those of us who live in Black communities know is that you can go to the 7-Eleven, to the liquor store, or to the corner store and buy hair products and beauty products, whereas in our white sisters that don't have that same reality. And so these companies are putting things into our community in ways that they don't put into other communities. Another mass tort that we're working on is called necroenterocolitis. We refer to it as NEC. And what NEC is when babies are born premature, and the mother, for whatever reason, and we know in our communities, there are lots of reasons why our women and our mothers are unable to breastfeed, and these premature babies are given Enfamil and Similac. What we found, what the science has showed us, is that the Enfamil and Similac essentially disintegrates their stomach, right? And about 50% of babies who are diagnosed with NEC don't survive, meaning they die. A large portion of the other ones, live with catastrophic injuries, with colostomy bags. We see a lot of different issues, other issues that are related to children who survive NEC, whether or not it's again just a myriad of developmental issues, mental health developmental health developmental issues, physical develop issues. And so and what happens is when our babies are born premature, which again, Black and brown women have disproportionately more premature babies, again, for lots of reasons, prenatal health, lots of reasons why a large portion of babies, premature babies, are born to Black and brown women. But the baby's organs have not developed. And Enfamil and Similac, it's a cow's based milk, and they can't, their system just can't handle it. And like I said, essentially it disintegrates their stomachs and causes traumatic and significant damages to these babies. And I would encourage any of you, if you had a baby, or if you had a friend, a niece, a nephew, or a friend whose baby was born prematurely and was diagnosed with NEC, give us a call. We'd love to help hold the industry accountable for the harm that they knew would happen to your baby if your baby was given the Enfamil or Similac, or a cow's based milk. And sometimes in our community, what we're finding out is that, there's some of our sisters and families and, fathers whose babies have died, premature, died early deaths as a result of NEC, and our families didn't even know that it was NEC, or didn't know that it was because they were given the premature formula of these Enfamil and Similacs while they were in the NICU. So that's two. We also work on insulin litigation. We represent cities and towns that again have overcharged for the price of insulin. And another one that we represent that it's very similar to a mass tort is we represent our brothers and sisters. If you were incarcerated as a juvenile in the state of Maryland, in any of the juvenile facilities, and you were sexually assaulted, like if you were touched improperly in any kind of way while you were incarcerated, while your care was entrusted to the state of Maryland in a juvenile facility, the law has changed such that we can file civil cases on behalf of those individuals, regardless of how long ago it happened. So if it happened 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 5 days ago, 10 years ago, doesn't matter how long ago that it happened, then there's an opportunity for you to be a part of the litigation with us to hold the state of Maryland accountable for its employees that were supposed to be helping you to get to a different and a better path, but were abusing their authority by improperly touching you. So again, we have if you want to give us a call, our phone number is 866 May Jung, MAYJUNG. So please feel free to give us a call, and if you have any questions about any of the mass torts, or whether or not you are eligible, just please give us a call. All right, hold on. I'm sorry. what's the next? Oh, the time limit um, on a is that a personal injury claim? So again, there are different timelines for personal injury on the time limit that you have to file a case. It's a really good question based on where you live. Again, I'll kind of speak a little bit more as it relates to the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, what it's called is a statute of limitation. So, right, what's the time limit that you have in order to file a lawsuit? In the District of Columbia, you must file a statute of limitation claim within 3 years of the date of injury. And so if you had a car accident today, December 11th, 2024, you must file a lawsuit for that claim by December the 11th, 2027. And if you don't, you lose the right to be able to file the claim. And so people, sometimes ask me like, well, why is it going to take, um, why is it, why would it take 3 years? Or, when do you come across a time limit, a time issue? And there's different reasons. I mean, sometimes people are so actually hurt so bad in a personal injury claim that they may be getting medical treatment, be doing physical therapy for like a year or a year and a half. And, at that point in time, they hadn't received a lawyer and they hadn't thought about it, or, they didn't realize about some of the issues, and, time just gets past us. But, one of the things that I tell folks is, if you're injured, like if you slip and fall somewhere, if you get in a car accident, again, if you've been injured because of the actions or the negligence of someone else, reach out to an attorney, reach out to us, give us a call and give us an opportunity to help you understand what the time limit or the statute of limitations are and what your rights are, and your ability to be able to, again, hold folks accountable for their actions. Are there any litigation cases that school systems can join? There are some litigations that school systems can join. We currently are looking and working with school districts who have school buildings that were built in 1950. And so I don't know if the person that's asking this question it has in their system, if they have cases that are if they have school buildings that are that old. But there is a chemical called PCBs. It's a forever chemical. It's actually a chemical that never disintegrates. And what we see, Monsanto is the manufacturer of this chemical. And what we have found in buildings that were built in like the 1950s, through I think that maybe like the late 70s, between the late 1950s to the late 70s, that when we look at the caulk that was used in some of those buildings, we look at the windows, some of the window ceilings, we look at some of the electrical fixtures, we see this chemical PCBs, we find it there. And it's a low risk to children in terms of, children don't live in the building, and so they're not sleeping there, for example. But it is a risk, and so we, represent school districts to hold Monsanto accountable for having this chemical in these different products and having our children exposed to them. And so we seek to go after Monsanto to get the money for the school systems to be able to mitigate and remediate those risks that are in in the actual school buildings. If a person is injured on the job, is workers' compensation their only recourse? That is a very, very good question. Generally speaking, yes. In the District of Columbia and in most jurisdictions, if you're hurt at work, your sole remedy against your employer is through workers' compensation, right? So you can't file a civil litigation, can't try to file like a lawsuit against your employer if you got hurt at work. Now, the kind of caveat or like the exception to that is, let's just say that you were hurt at work, but your injury was the result of another party, of a third party. I think a really good example of this was a case where an individual was working in a parking garage as a security officer. And as a security officer, the individual was in the parking garage, and there was a valet company who use the parking garage, drive cars in and out and use it as a part of where they park the cars. Well, the security officer was hit by a car that was driven by the valet company. And so, because she was at work when she was injured, she had a valid workers' comp claim to, again, pay for her medical expenses and to compensate for her lost wages. And so, she couldn't sue her employer for anything other than this work. Well, she couldn't sue them. She could only file a claim for workers' compensation for which she had a valid claim. But she then had what we consider, or what we call, a third party claim against the valet company for which the individual who was driving the vehicle hit her. And so, in a workers' compensation claim, you can file a civil suit or file a claim against a third party, but you can't file that civil claim against your employer. But that's a very good question. I think the other part that I want to say about that is, there's going to be times for some of you all that, especially if you're a 1099 contractor, that if you get hurt at work, your employer is going to say workers' comp doesn't cover you because you're not an employee. Well, again, especially here in the District of Columbia, just because you're a 1099 doesn't mean that the workers' compensation law don't apply to you. There again, if you are a 1099, you're a consultant or you're a contractor, and you were hurt in the scope of your employment, give us a call and let us talk to you about your specific situation. But again, for example, if you're a 1099 contractor, but your contractor, your prime contractor, whoever it is you work for, if they set your hours, if they tell you what you have to do, if they tell you when you have to do it, and essentially they're just calling you a 1099, maybe for tax purposes, in the District of Columbia, you're still going to be considered an employee and you're going to be eligible for workers' compensation. Um, can mental and emotional distress be considered personal injury? It absolutely can, because it's real. Like when someone is injured, especially if someone is catastrophically injured, you absolutely are able to look at being able to file mental and emotional distress claims. One of the things that I always tell people, always tell clients, as it relates to um, um, one of the things that I always tell folks is like, hey, the same way that you go to the emergency room, and then I can get medical reports in order to show or verify your physical injuries. I'm going to need that same to be able to verify or to validate your mental or emotional injuries as well. And you can go into a jury and say, "Yep, I was messed up," and maybe even your mama can say, "Yep, my baby ain't the same. She's been depressed or whatever." That is not the same as you going and seeking mental health counseling from a professional who's able to give a professional opinion, right, on the damage that's been caused to you for your emotional and your mental distress. So we can absolutely file those claims. I think the one thing that I always tell folks about that as well is, when you file a claim for mental and emotional distress, that will typically, if you don't file for that, say you were in a car accident and you got hurt, you got banged up, you broke a bone or two, we're going to provide your medical records as proof, the emergency room or your orthopedic as proof of that, and we don't have to provide your mental health provider's records. But if you file a claim for mental and emotional distress, just know that the records and the conversations that you've had with your mental health provider become something that we have to disclose to the person that we're suing, because again, they've got to be able to see the verification, the validation of the harm and the injuries that you suffered. How do we base our fees? Again, so we are a contingency based law firm. And what that means is, I think you probably hear this on on TV sometimes or whatever. We don't get paid if you don't get paid, and I mean, that's a simple way of putting it. But what that means is, we pay all the upfront costs, whatever it costs for us to litigate your case. any fees, and there's lots of fees, right? There's filing fees. If I want your medical records, I got to pay to get your medical records. So there's different fees that we pay. Obviously, my team is working. I got to pay my team, but we don't ask for any money from any of our clients up front. We make those costs. We pay those costs ourselves, and then when we're successful in recovering money for you on behalf of the client, what we do is we reimburse ourselves for those expenses that we paid, and then there's a percentage that we then take as our part of our attorney's fees, and then the balance of whatever is left, that money is what's left for the client. So yeah, we're contingency based. Um, ask a friend was working for his brother's construction company, fell off a ladder and broke his neck. Brother's company has no insurance. Friend doesn't want to sue brother. Any advice? Again, I don't know what jurisdiction it is, and I don't want to get into providing. I think our disclaimer said is, this is kind of for informational purposes and not specific legal advice to anyone. So, you should really, give us a call so we can talk into more details about that. But, kind of more generally speaking, if you, some jurisdictions here in the district and other jurisdictions, if there was an injury, if there was a workers' comp claim, and there was no insurance by the company, there's a fund, a fund of money by the Office of Workers' Compensation or by the jurisdiction, for which people are able to go to that fund for compensation, or to try to recover those medical expenses and those lost wages. So, but there's a lot of specifics around that, and one of the things I appreciate about your question is, this is a brother working for a brother's company, and he didn't want to sue his brother. This is what I tell people all the time. In a workers' compensation case, you are not suing the person. You're not suing your boss. You're not suing your supervisor. You're not suing your coworker, right? You're suing the insurance company of the company. And whether or not you provide a lawsuit, whether or not you file a workers' comp claim, one workers' comp claim, or two workers' comp claim, or no workers' comp claim, your employer, if they are in compliance with the local laws, your employer is going to pay for workers' comp insurance regardless. And so your claim isn't going to come out of your employer's bank account. It's going to be something that's paid for by their workers' comp insurance. And so I always try to get people comfortable with, like, oh, but I like my boss. Where we see this most prevalent, to be very honest with you, is in our community. We have a lot of our brothers and sisters who are returning home from the other side of the wall, and they are really appreciative when folks are second chance employers, and give them an opportunity to work where other people won't. And then they get hurt at work, and they're like, man, this guy was just good to me. This employer is good to me. They gave me a job when nobody else wanted to give me a job. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sue them, man. Like, they just good people. Again, your decision that you're faced with is, but if you can't work and your employer, you don't have any sick leave, and there's no money for you to make sure that you can eat and pay your bills, right? Workers' comp is going to be able to provide that for you. And it's not personal to the employer. It's going to be about their insurance. So again, if you've been injured at work and you have any questions about, a workers' comp claim, whether or not you're an employee or 1099, just give us a call, or, come to the website and fill out your information in a form, and we'll get back to you and talk about your case very specifically. Um, do we, how do I know if my civil rights have been violated? There's so many different civil rights that folks violate. I think some of us don't even think about it when people retaliate against us, that's a violation of your civil rights. I think, generally speaking, it's about when someone is treating you differently than they treat other folks who are similarly situated. So if you work for an employer and they're treating you differently than they're treating other employees, then it's very possible that your rights have been violated. If you are pulled over, or something happens to you based on the neighborhood that you're in, or based on how you look, based on your color, based on your gender, it's very likely that your that or potential that your civil rights have been violated. And so, like I said, there's just so many different uh, variations of our rights that are being violated by folks. There's employment discrimination. There is, we all have a right to not be shot and killed for no reason. A constitutional right for those things. And so that's a harder question for me to say that there's one specific answer. But I would say generally, if you believe that you've been treated differently for some reason, because of your economics, because of your race, because of your gender, then it's very possible that your civil rights have been violated. And if you have a question about that, again, just give us a call and let us kind of talk through with you to see if you have a claim or a case as it relates to your rights being violated. I see a question. Do you all mentor or accept internships? We do. I mean, we've absolutely had interns in the past, and I think all of our attorneys and all of our team really believe that it's important to kind of mentor and to increase the field. Again, as a woman of color owned law firm, it's very important for us to make sure that we're providing opportunities for other Black and brown lawyers, very specifically Black and brown women, to become lawyers and to fight this fight. A lot of personal injury lawyers will get into it, and maybe they'll only do car accidents, maybe they'll only do like slip and falls, premise liabilities. The work that we do, right? And again, we do some of those. We do car accidents, we do workers' comp, we do when you slip and fall, premise liability. But we do some of the hard cases, right? Like the social justice, the civil rights cases, and it takes them a lot longer, and they're a lot more complicated. And so the opportunity to mentor and bring others in this field is very important, because unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that are harmed, and there's a lot of bad people, bad actors out there, and we need soldiers in this army to fight for folks. So I see we're kind of getting close to the end of our time. I'm super excited. Thank you guys for coming on and asking questions and being a part of this live for me. So I think I have time for one more question. Okay, I'll say our last question is: do you sue nursing homes for senior neglect? Uh, uh, we hold accountable and/or sue, if that's the term that you want to leave. We're going to hold anyone accountable for harm that they've done to people, and yes, that includes seniors in nursing home. One of the misnomers about nursing homes is that everyone in there are seniors. They're actually, nursing facilities or skilled nursing facilities that young people are in as well, and they're also abused in those facilities. But absolutely, it's really unfortunate. We represent a senior sister who was in a nursing facility. And the rules are very clear. The policies of the nursing home are very clear that when you're moving or changing the bed of an individual that's in a hospital bed, that it's a two-person job, right, to make sure that the individual is safe. And the policy also requires that the rails are up. And in this specific case, it was only one person handling the client. They didn't have both of the rails up. And when they went to look to change the sheets for the bed, the senior sister rolled off the bed and broke both her hips. And these organizations that are charging us and making money off of us and making money off of insurance providers, they have to be held accountable to make sure that our precious seniors, right, are taken care of, and that they don't mistreat them. And so if you are a senior, if you have a relative that's a senior in a nursing home, and you believe that that person has been neglected, again, give us a call. And we'd love to have a conversation with you about whether or not we believe that that's a claim for you. And that was our last question. But I do want to end by saying this, because this is probably the most disappointing conversation that we have to have with individuals who call us who have lost a loved one, as it relates to an issue. If you have a loved one that has died and you believe it's because of the negligence or the actions of someone else, you must get an autopsy done of your family member. If you don't have an autopsy done on the body, then if you come to me and say, "Hey, I wanna sue this person because they caused the death of my loved one," um, without an autopsy, I don't know what the cause of death, and people will say, "Well, I got a death certificate, and it says that the cause of death was A, B, and C." Well, a lot of times the death certificate is gonna tell me what their illness was at the time of death. Doesn't necessarily tell me what caused the death. And if you want me to hold someone accountable for the cause of death of your loved one, you have to have an autopsy. And generally speaking, there's gonna be some situations when an individual died where it's gonna trigger an automatic autopsy. A lot of times it's not, and you as a family member, you're gonna have to pay for that private autopsy yourself. But if you believe that your loved one died at the hands or the negligence or based on someone not doing what they were supposed to do, and you're gonna wanna hold someone accountable, please, 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 please get an autopsy done of your family member. Without an autopsy, it's going to be really hard for my firm, and to be honest with you, for any firm to really look at doing a wrongful death claim on behalf of you and your loved one. So, hey, thank you all so very much for joining again. Any questions, any consultations you want, please give us a call at 1-866 MAYJUNG 1-866 May Jung. Please visit us on our website, mayjung.com. You can fill out a form. You can look in, tell us what the situation is. We'll get back to you. You can give us a call. We're here. We're super grateful for the opportunities we have to be lawyers and to serve the community, and we look forward to representing you if you're harmed, if you have a claim. We look forward to helping you hold accountable folks, not only for yourself, but for our community. So thank you all very much. Good night.